1. Why I don't work nights anymore. I don't tell people the real reason I quit working nights. When the topic comes up, I usually blame it on burnout, or say I wanted to go back to school, or something harmless like that. It's easier. People nod, they understand that story. But that's not the truth. The real reason is simpler and uglier. One long winter night, in a small assisted living facility, I realized that no policy, no panic button, no laminated procedure in a binder is going to save you if the wrong person decides your building is their hunting ground. Everybody loves a good ghost story. This is not that. There are no demons, no curses, no ancient rituals. Just a storm, an old building, 14 fragile people, and a man who knew the layout better than we did. That was enough. 2. Maple Ridge. The place where this happened was called Maple Ridge Assisted Living. That sounds nicer than it was. If you drove past it in daylight, you'd see a long, low building with fake stone glued to the front, a few sad bushes, and a sign with a maple leaf logo. In the pictures on the brochure, the grass is always green and there's always a smiling older couple holding hands. In reality, the building used to be an elementary school. You could still feel it if you knew what to look for. The main hallway was too wide, like it remembered being a corridor between classrooms. The activity room still had the faint outline of where a chalkboard had been, painted over. The old gym had been converted into a storage area and staff break room, but the ceiling was still too high, like it was waiting for basketballs to hit it. We had 14 residents in total. 8 in the main wing. 6 in the locked memory care wing. And we had 3 people on nights, on a good night. 1 RN, Carla, mid-40s, tough, sarcastic, tired in a way that lives in your bones. 1 CNA, me, 24, new enough to still care about doing things the right way. 1 on-call manager at home, reachable anytime, in theory. If 2 of us were busy at the same time, someone falling, someone needing help to the bathroom, someone confused and wandering, that meant no one at the front desk. No one watching the cameras. No one at the doors. We had panic buttons. We had binders. We had state regulations posted on the wall in plastic sleeves. We did not have security. Most nights, that didn't matter. Most nights, the scariest thing I saw was someone's dentures floating in a glass of water. 3. The storm arrives. This happened in late January. You know the kind of winter storm I'm talking about, the kind the local news names, like a hurricane. The kind where the meteorologist stands in front of a map with a big purple smear over your town and says words like historic and hazardous conditions. It started around 4 in the afternoon. I remember standing in the dining room, helping Mrs. Parker cut her chicken, when the first slow flakes drifted past the window. "Oh, that's pretty," she said, squinting. "Is it Christmas?" "It's January, Mrs. Parker," I said. "We missed Christmas. But we've still got the snow." She nodded like that made perfect sense. By the time day shift left at 10, the snow wasn't pretty anymore. It was a white wall. The parking lot was buried. The front steps were a lumpy suggestion under drifts that came halfway up the glass on the lobby door. Carla walked in from the storm at 10 p.m., shaking snow off her coat like a dog. "You made it," I said, trying to joke. I was about to start training the residents to pass meds. She snorted. "Don't let the state hear you say that. Highway's already a mess. They're talking about shutting it down by midnight. If they do, we're stuck." I thought she meant, like, stuck at work for an extra hour or 2. She meant, totally alone. No police, no paramedics, no supervisors, no repair guys, just us. She stomped the snow off her boots and hung her coat. Backup generator's an antique, she said, glancing up at the ceiling like she could see the wiring. If the power goes, it'll come on, but don't count on the cameras and the phones. Just be ready. Ready for what? I asked. She didn't answer at first. She went behind the nurse's station, logged into the computer, checked the weather, checked the census, checked meds. Just ready, she said finally. Storms bring out weirdness. In the building. And outside it. She said it like she was talking about the wind or power outages. Not people. 4. Skeleton crew. We started the shift like any other. I did the bedtime routine in the main wing. Room 1 helped Mr. Whitaker into his pajamas. He complained about the government and then fell asleep mid-sentence. Room 3 adjusted Mrs. Herrera's oxygen, tucked in her feet. Room 5 refilled water, tidied magazines. Room 7 convinced Mr. Lee he did not, in fact, need to go shovel the driveway. Little normal things. The building felt cozy at first. Residents in their rooms, TVs murmuring, faint smell of coffee in the kitchen, the heater doing its best against the chill. I remember standing in the main hallway around midnight and just listening. The hum of the vents, the soft buzz of the exit sign, the far-off clatter of a dishwasher finishing its cycle. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, it was the calm. Enjoy it, Carla said, walking past with a stack of charts. Storm's not done yet. At 12:30, I went back to memory care for my first night rounds. The memory care unit had its own little hallway, its own lounge, its own small enclosed courtyard, the therapeutic garden. To get in there, you had to punch a code into a keypad and wait for the lock to click. I punched it in, waited for the beep, and stepped into that other world. The air always felt different there. A little warmer. A little thicker. People there lived in different years. In one room, the TV flickered blue and white, its sound off. A woman sighed in her sleep, mumbling about her children getting off the bus. In another, a man sat awake with the lights off, staring at the wall, fingers moving like he was counting change in a hand that wasn't there. And in room M3, Mary Collins grabbed my wrist. Mary was one of my favorites. She'd been a teacher once. Some nights she thought she still was. She liked to ask me if I'd done my homework and then laugh at her own joke. Tonight, her eyes were clear. "Did you lock it?" she whispered. "Lock what?" I asked, gently peeling her fingers away from my arm. "The back door," she said. "He'll come in if you don't lock it." "Who?" I asked, half listening, already thinking ahead to the rest of the rounds. She held my gaze with an intensity that cut right through the fog of her disease. "The tall man," she said. "From before. The storm brings him." The storm moaned against the window, right on cue. I smiled, because that's what you do when dementia says creepy things. "You're safe, Mary. All the doors are locked." She didn't let go. Her hand tightened. "Don't let him take anybody this time," she whispered. "Please." Something about the "this time" stuck in my chest. I wrote it down later in my notes under behavioral changes, because that's what you're supposed to do. I even tried to make a joke of it in my head. Oh good, now the dementia patients are predicting tall men in storms. Perfect. I should have listened better. 5. The lights go out. At 1:15 a.m., I was helping change Mr. Whitaker when the lights blinked. Not fully off, just a quick dimming, like someone had turned a dimmer switch almost all the way down and then back up. "Hey now," he grumbled, half asleep. "Pay the power bill, will you?" I laughed it off. By 1:20, the storm's voice had changed. Wind stopped being background noise and started feeling like pressure against the walls. The building creaked in ways I hadn't heard before, old bones shifting in the cold. I got back to the nurse's station and checked the alarm panel. All exterior doors, green lights. Armed. Closed. Memory care doors, armed. Back service door, armed. One of my jobs on nights was to keep an eye on that panel. If a door opened, a little red light would flash and a soft chime would sound for the specific door. Relax, I told myself. It's just a storm. You've seen these before. At 1:27 a.m., the building went black. Total, absolute dark. For half a second, it was like someone had erased the world. Then, after a beat that felt like it lasted an hour, the generator kicked in. Not smoothly. It started with a cough, then a stuttering rumble, then a steady mechanical growl from somewhere outside. Emergency lights flickered on along the ceilings, dim, yellowish pools instead of the bright fluorescence we were used to. Exit signs glowed red in the dark. The fish tank in the lounge went quiet, the vending machine in the hall went silent, the security camera monitor behind the nurse's station stayed black. Carla muttered a word I won't repeat. Cameras aren't on backup, she said. Of course they aren't. Phones? I asked. She picked up the corded phone at the desk and listened. Nothing. Landline's gone, she said. She checked her cell. No signal. I checked mine. No service. The nearest other buildings were a decent distance away. The highway was out there somewhere, but we couldn't see it through the storm. No neighbors to run to. No corner store across the street. Just us, 14 older adults, and a generator that sounded like it had smoked 2 packs a day since 1984. Okay, Carla said, trying to sound calm. No big. We've done this before. Generator holds. It always has. We stay calm, we do our jobs, we don't panic the residents. Then the back door alarm chimed. 6 footprints in the snow. The alarm chime was soft, almost apologetic. Ding ding. It came from down the hallway, a slightly different tone than the others. I'd learned each door's sound without thinking about it. This one was the back service exit, off the kitchen. Carla and I looked at each other. You hear that? She asked, already pushing away from the desk. Yeah. Back door? Go check, she said. I'll reset the panel. I grabbed my small pen light and headed down the hallway. The building felt emptier with the generator on. Quieter. Like some layer of familiar noise had been peeled away. My footsteps sounded too loud. I cut through the dining room, chairs stacked, tables cleared, napkins folded perfectly on each one, waiting for breakfast that hadn't happened yet, and pushed into the kitchen. Stainless steel surfaces caught my flashlight beam and threw it back at me in warped reflections. The corridor to the back exit was narrow, lined with boxes and a mop bucket. The door at the end wasn't wide open. It wasn't even open enough to see through. But the handle was turned down. And the little red armed light on the alarm box beside it was blinking slowly, indicating opened and closed. My heart thudded. I put my hand on the metal bar and gently pushed the door a few inches outward. Cold exploded in through the gap, sharp and immediate. I squinted through the wired glass window. Outside, the world was white. Snow covered the steps. Snow buried the parking lot. Snow piled against the chain-link fence at the edge of the property. Near the top of the concrete steps, just outside the door, I saw them. Footprints. Just a few. Half a dozen, maybe. Leading right up to the door. No trail off to the side. No line of prints coming from the lot or going away. Just there, like something had materialized in the storm, walked up to the door, and stopped. They were bare feet. Not boots, not shoes, not someone in sneakers who'd forgotten their coat. Bare human feet, pressed into fluffy new snow. I could see the toes. My brain tried to invent explanations. Maybe they're old prints. Maybe they're distorted impressions from boots that look like feet from far away. Maybe the storm had only gotten this bad in the last couple hours. Those prints were fresh. Something twisted low in my stomach. I closed the door firmly, sliding the bolt all the way until it clicked. Carla's voice came from behind me. Well? I jumped. I'd been so focused I hadn't heard her approach. I moved aside so she could see out. She stared at the prints. Her face didn't change much, but I saw her jaw tighten, that tiny shift in the muscles near her eyes. Could be a mink guy earlier, I said weakly. Day shift? Took the trash out or something? And bare feet? She asked. We both stood there listening. The generator hummed. The wind screamed. Nothing knocked. Nothing rattled the door. Reset it, she said finally. I did. As I walked away, I glanced back over my shoulder. For a split second, I thought the prints looked deeper. Like whatever made them was still standing there. I told myself it was my imagination. Storms do that. They scrape at your nerves until shadows look like shapes and shapes look like people. That's what I told myself. 7, 1 missing. By around 3 in the morning, the hours had begun to blur. Night shifts do that, even without storms. Time moves in weird jumps. A 10-minute room check feels like an hour. An hour of charting feels like 5 minutes. You look up at the clock and wonder how it got that late. Around 3 a.m., I headed back to memory care for another round. Residents sometimes get restless when the weather turns. Something about the pressure changes, the noise. They feel it even if they don't know what storm means anymore. I punched in the code, waited for the beep, and stepped into the memory wing hallway. The air felt colder here than it had before. The first few rooms were normal. M1, resident asleep on his side, snoring. M2, resident mumbling about a car that needed washing. M3, Mary Collins lying on her back, eyes half open, whispering to someone I couldn't see. Then I reached M5. The door was open a crack. The light was on. The bed was empty. Blankets thrown back. Slippers gone. The closet door was ajar. One heavy coat was missing from the little rack. I checked the bathroom, even though I already knew. Empty. My stomach dropped. The name on the door plaque read, Harold Harry Harris. 82. Liked black coffee and Johnny Cash. Called me kiddo even though I was the one putting him to bed. Harry? I called softly. No answer. I checked the lounge. Empty. The other rooms again. Maybe he'd wandered into someone else's bed. It happens. No Harry. The hallway felt longer than it should. I forced myself not to run as I went back through the keypad door and down the main hall. Carla looked up as I practically slid behind the nurse's station. Harris is gone, I said. My voice sounded wrong in my own ears. Thin, too high. She blinked once, then stood. You checked the bathrooms? She asked. All of them. Main wing? Lounge? Activity room? I'll check again, I said. But he's not in his bed. And his coat is gone. She swore softly. Okay, she said. You check every room and common area again. I'll check the main wing, bathroom, old gym. Meet back here in 10 minutes. If we don't find him, we go outside. Outside? I repeated, looking at the snow still battering the windows. If he's out there, she said, we have to at least try. You know that. Sometimes rules feel abstract until they don't. I ran. 8, 10 minutes. Those 10 minutes trying to find Harry felt like the longest of my life. I checked everywhere. Main lounge, a couple of residents dozing in front of the dark TV. No Harry. Dining room, empty. Activity room, empty except for a half-finished puzzle and a shelf of board games nobody touched. Bathrooms, I kicked open each door with a breezy, "Anybody in here?" to cover the rising panic. Old gym, dark, full of stacked furniture and seasonal decorations. I swept my flashlight over the echoes of what had been. No Harry. I checked under tables, and corners where confused residents sometimes liked to sit and think they were waiting for a bus. No Harry. I met Carla back at the nurse's station. She shook her head. "No sign," she said. "Damn it." "Okay. Coats. Boots if you've got them. We go out, quick. Just around the building. No heroics." We grabbed our jackets from the staff room. Mine was thin. Not meant for this kind of storm. When I came back to the lobby, Carla was staring at the front door. "What?" I asked, pulling my hood up. She nodded toward the small rectangle of glass in the door. The inside of the window was frosted. Thin ice had formed in weird patterns. But someone had drawn a shape through it with a finger. A smile. 2 crude circles for eyes, a long, curved line for a mouth. From the outside. I wanted to believe it had been there for hours and I'd just missed it. I knew it hadn't. We stood there a moment, just breathing. "You ready?" she asked. "Not really," I said. "Too bad." 9. The garden. We decided to check the memory care courtyard first. It was closer than the front, and if Harry had somehow gotten out there, he'd be in serious trouble in this cold. The courtyard was enclosed by a high fence attached to the back of the memory care lounge. The only access was through the glass doors in that lounge. We went back through the keypad door into the memory hallway. Everything felt off. The air was colder. The emergency lights flickered, casting weak puddles of illumination on the carpet. The memory lounge door was slightly open. "I thought you closed that," Carla muttered. "I did," I said. We pushed it open. The lounge was dark except for the exit sign above the garden doors, glowing dull red. I could see the outline of chairs and a small table. The fish tank in the corner made its quiet bubbling sound, unfazed by our drama. The deadbolt on the garden door was turned to unlocked. My breath sounded loud in my ears. Carla flipped it open and shouldered the door. Wind and snow punched into the room, swirling around our ankles. She raised her flashlight and shone it into the courtyard. For a second, all I saw was white. Snow had piled in drifts against the fence, covering the little walking path, half burying the bird feeder. Then the beam found them. 2 figures in the middle of the courtyard. One tall. One smaller, slumped. The tall one had his arm around the smaller one. My heart recognized the smaller shape before my brain did. "Harry!" I shouted. The taller figure looked up. Even through the snow, even with the flashlight bouncing, I saw his face. Pale skin. Dark stubble on his jaw. Eyes too wide, pupils blown. A thin mouth pulled into a smile that was almost happy. He tightened his grip on Harry's shoulders. Harry's house slippers were soaked. His bare ankles were an ugly, chilled red. He looked dazed, staring at us like he wasn't totally sure whether we were real. "Sir!" Carla yelled, professional instinct kicking in. "You need to come inside right now." The man laughed. We heard it clearly over the wind. "He doesn't want to," he shouted back. "He says you lock him up. Says you forget him in here. Isn't that right, Harold?" His voice was too bright. Too cheerful. Wrong for the situation. He jostled Harry a little. Harry grimaced. Carla stepped out into the snow, up to her shins in one stride. I grabbed her coat, my fingers digging in. The cold bit my legs through my scrub pants. Let him go, she shouted. Staff only back here. You can't be here. Who are you? He tilted his head, squinting against the flashlight. You don't remember me, he called. As he spoke, a memory surfaced in my mind, a story I'd heard in the break room. A name that staff dropped in a half-joking, half-serious way. A former aide, too attached to a resident, fired quietly when things felt off. Carla's face changed. The anger was still there, but something else slid underneath it. Recognition. Tom, she called. The man's smile widened. Hey, Carla, he said like they'd bumped into each other at a grocery store. Long time. 10. A story I thought was just gossip. Tom. Every facility has a ghost story. At Maple Ridge, it wasn't a ghost. It was a guy. Thomas Kinder, CNA. He'd worked there years before I started. The old staff said he was too nice to one particular resident, a woman in her 70s with early dementia. Her name was Ann. And Harris. Harry's wife. They said he spent extra time in her room, brought her treats, sat a little too close. Nothing anyone could prove. Nothing obviously sexual. Just wrong. Then one afternoon, her daughter came in and found him there alone with the door shut. And was lying in bed. He was sitting in a chair right beside her, their hands clasped, talking low. The daughter lost it. Administration investigated. Tom was let go for policy violations. His file became a whisper rather than a document. That's how the story went, just gossip in the break room. A cautionary tale about boundaries. What they didn't put in the binder was how often he told people, I'll take care of her. I'll take care of them better than anyone. I'd never seen his face before that night in the courtyard. Now here he was, standing in the snow, clutching Ann's husband. I used to work here, he said, to me this time. Long before you. His voice had that strange mix of pride and accusation. Harry shifted under his arm, mumbling. Cold, he said. I'm cold. The words barely made it over the wind. Carla took a step forward, snow squeaking under her boots. You need to let him go, she called. Now. He doesn't want to, Tom said. He wants to go home. Don't you, Harold? He shook Harry slightly like a ventriloquist trying to get his puppet's attention. Harry's knees buckled. This time, he went down. Tom went with him, one foot slipping in the snow. In that half-second of imbalance, his grip loosened. I moved. I don't remember the first step. One moment, I was standing in the lounge doorway. The next, I was out in the courtyard, ice stabbing my shins, my hands under Harry's arms. He was heavier than he looked. Dead weight in the literal sense, muscles slack, legs buckling. Got you, I grunted. Got you, Harry. Come on. Come inside. Behind me, I heard Carla shout. He's not going anywhere with you, Tom. Let him go. Tom lunged. For a second, I thought he was going to hit me. Instead, Carla slammed into him from the side, maglite swinging. The heavy flashlight cracked against his shoulder and collarbone with a sound that made my teeth ache. He stumbled, cursed, clawed at the air. I didn't wait to see more. I half-dragged, half-carried Harry toward the open door. Each step felt like walking through glue. We got inside, Carla backed in after us, flashlight up like a weapon. Tom stood at the threshold, breathing hard. Snow clung to his eyelashes, his beard, his coat. The skin under his left eye was already swelling where the pepper spray would later hit. He took one step forward, into the doorway, into the frame. For a moment, he just looked at us. Not with rage. With disappointment. Go ahead, he said quietly. Lock me out. See if it helps when the lights go off again. Carla slammed the door. I twisted the deadbolt with shaking hands. We carried Harry back to his bed. His lips were blue at the edges. We wrapped him in heated blankets, put warm packs under his arms, checked his temperature, checked his pulse. He mumbled Anne's name twice and then drifted into a shallow, shivering sleep. Only when he was stable did we let ourselves feel what we'd just done. My hands buzzed with adrenaline. My legs burned from the cold. My heart wouldn't slow down. We need to call 911, I said. Right now. We need. No phones, Carla reminded me. No cell. Highway closed. So we wait? I asked, incredulous. We just wait with him out there? She looked out the lounge window at the swirling snow. No, she said. We go downstairs. 11, downstairs. If you want to understand how wrong things felt that night, you have to understand the basement. The basement at Maple Ridge had started life as an elementary school boiler room. Low ceiling. Concrete floor. Exposed pipes. IT smelled like detergent and old water. Now it housed laundry, mechanical systems, big water heaters, electrical panels, and a bunch of junk in 2 storage rooms. Residents weren't allowed down there. Half the staff didn't go if they could help it. There was one steel door off the kitchen corridor that led to the stairs. A keypad locked, glowing faint green. Carla and I went back through the kitchen, snow melting on our shoes, leaving little wet prints on the tile. The keypad light on the basement door was already green. Carla frowned. I locked this earlier, she said. She tried the handle. It turned easily. Maybe maintenance forgot, I suggested, even though I knew maintenance hadn't been there since noon. Maybe, she said. We stared into the darkness where the stairs went down. The emergency lights didn't reach that far. The stairwell was a black hole. You stay, she said. No, I answered immediately. She sighed. I figured you'd say that. We turned on our flashlights. Beams of white cut into the dark. Dust motes swirled. We descended. Each step echoed. My brain supplied every horror movie I'd ever seen with a basement in it. I tried to push them away. It's just a room, I told myself. Just pipes and boxes in. The basement hallway stretched ahead of us. Doors on either side, labeled laundry, mechanical, storage 1, storage 2, electrical. We checked them one by one. Laundry, empty washers, empty dryers, neat shelves of folded towels. The lingering smell of bleach and fabric softener. Mechanical, noisy machines humming, big metal boxes with warning stickers. Nobody there. Storage 1, old walkers, broken chairs, boxes labeled with things like Spring Decorations 2012. Storage 2, a weird mix of random furniture and boxes of paperwork. It smelled faintly of stale cigarette smoke, staff sneaking breaks. All empty. Then we reached electrical. The door was open a few inches. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Carla pushed it the rest of the way with her flashlight. The room was small but packed. Electrical panels lined one wall, gray metal cabinets with little switches and labels in faded handwriting, wing A, fire panel, kitchen, phone system. Cables snaked in thick bundles. In the middle of all this hardware, against the far wall, sat something that did not belong. A cot. One of the fold-up camp beds we kept for staff to sleep on during blizzards. It was unfolded, neatly made with a sleeping bag and a pillow. Beside it sat a crate serving as a makeshift nightstand. On the crate, an empty coffee mug. An open bag of chips. A small flashlight. And a Maple Ridge ID badge. Carla picked up the badge, turned it toward my flashlight. The photo showed a younger, cleaner version of the man we'd just seen in the snow. The name under it read, Thomas Kinder, CNA. My skin went cold. He's been staying here, I whispered. In the building. Sleeping here, Carla said, voice flat. Living God knows where the rest of the time. Coming in when he wants. Going where he wants. We both looked at the tangle of wires and switches, the panels that controlled the whole building. He knows this place better than we do, I realized. Carla opened her mouth to respond. That's when the generator choked. 12. The dark. You don't realize how much you trust electricity until you feel it hesitate. The low rumble we'd gotten used to suddenly shuddered, coughed, stuttered. The emergency lights flickered. Then, all at once, they went out. We were plunged into complete blackness. Not dim, not low light, nothing. I couldn't even see my own hand in front of my face. The only sound was the fading whine of something heavy spinning to a stop. I swore and fumbled with my flashlight. It slipped out of my grip, clattered on concrete, rolled away. Eli? Carla's voice snapped through the dark. I dropped it, I said. Hang on. Her flashlight stayed on, thank God, sweeping wildly as she turned toward the door. The beam caught something in the doorway. A silhouette. Tall. Thin. Slightly hunched. For a second, my brain refused to assign it a face. It was just a shape, human-sized, blocking the faint ambient glow from upstairs. Then he stepped into the flashlight beam. One eye was red and watering. His cheek was streaked where the pepper spray has hit. His hair stuck up in odd directions, sweat and melted snow mixed. Tom. See, he said quietly. Told you the lights would go off again. Carla raised the flashlight higher, gripping it halfway like a club. Don't move, she said, voice lower than I'd ever heard it. Don't take one more step. He smiled faintly. We're just talking, he said. I used to come down here all the time. Maintenance guys loved me. Trusted me. Let me flip the breakers for drills. You remember the drills, Carla? She didn't answer. He took one slow step into the room. I know this place better than anyone, he said. I know which doors stay propped open in summer. I know which exit alarms haven't worked in 10 years. I know how long it takes you people to respond to a bed alarm when you're on the toilet. My skin crawled. He looked at me now, like he'd only just decided I mattered. And you, he said. New kid. You still think this place is about care, don't you? About doing the right thing. My voice came out small. We're not hurting anyone, Tom. He laughed, short and humorless. Not on purpose, he said. Doesn't mean you're helping either. Upstairs, faint but audible through the ducts, the overhead PA system crackled. We all froze. We didn't use the PA at night, ever. The last time I'd heard it was some morning for a fire drill months ago. Now, after a burst of static, a voice came through the ceiling. My voice. Code Blue, Room 3, Main Wing. Code Blue, Room 3, Main Wing. The tone was off by a hair. Slightly too slow, slightly too chopped, like someone had recorded it in chunks and stitched it together. Carla glanced up. Then at me. I stared at the nearest speaker, my skin prickling. That's not me, I whispered. I pulled some old test drills off the computer, Tom said lightly. You'd be amazed what gets stored on these systems. The PA crackled again. Help, a voice wheezed. Help me. I fell. It sounded exactly like Mr. Whitaker. It twisted something in my chest. I pictured him on the floor, gasping, unable to reach his call button. Is that real? I asked, heart racing. Is he? No, Tom said. That part's new. I like editing. Gives it spice. He took another step. Carla moved closer to me, putting herself between us. Let us by, she said. Now. And miss our little party? He answered. No thanks. I've been waiting a long time for this storm. 13. Pepper spray. Fear does weird things to time. In that basement, seconds stretched and snapped like elastic. Carla and I were pinned between Tom and the breakers that controlled the building. The exit to the stairs was now behind him. Upstairs, the PA kept playing. The same chopped-up message repeated, then garbled into static. Somewhere above us, residents slept. Or didn't. The thought hit me hard. If he gets past US and goes upstairs, there's nothing between him and them. Not locked doors, not cameras, not security. Just us. My hand brushed my pocket. I felt the small cylinder on my keychain. Pepper spray. My dad had given it to me when I got the job. Just in case, he'd said, half joking, half not. I'd laughed. Dad, I work with 80-year-olds. 80-year-olds have families, he'd replied. Not all of them are nice. Standing there in the basement, I silently thanked him. I closed my fingers around the canister. Tom took another step forward. You're going to go upstairs, he said calmly. You're going to sit at your desk. You're not going to call anyone, not that you can. When the storm clears, I'll leave with him. With Harry. And you'll tell your bosses you lost track of him in the confusion. They'll believe you. They always do. They never think about who might be watching from the edges. He wasn't ranting. He sounded like he was giving report. Like this was all just part of a plan he'd rehearsed 100 times in his head. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my throat. I moved before I thought. I stepped around Carla, closing the distance between us in 2 strides. His eyes widened, surprised. He hadn't expected me to come at him. I jammed my thumb down on the pepper spray and aimed for his face. He turned his head instinctively. The stream caught him full in one eye and across his cheek instead of straight on. It was enough. He screamed. Not long, just a raw, shocked sound. He staggered back, both hands flying to his face, clawing at his skin. His boot lashed out as he stumbled. It caught me in the stomach. Pain exploded through my midsection. The breath whooshed out of me. My feet left the floor. I hit the concrete hard. My flashlight skidded across the room, clanging against one of the panels. For a dizzy second, the room tilted. The emergency lights flickered weakly back on, triggered maybe by the generator sputtering back to life. I could see Tom now, eyes squeezed shut, tears and snot streaming from his nose as he tried to wipe the spray away, making it worse. Carla didn't hesitate. She barreled past him while he was blinded, shoulder-checking him into the doorframe. He hit it with a dull thud and slid down a step, still swearing. Upstairs, she shouted. Move! I scrambled to my feet, ribs throbbing, and ran after her. I didn't look back. We slammed the basement door behind us and shoved the heaviest thing we could find in front of it, a big metal trash can. It wouldn't stop him if he wanted out, but it would slow him, make noise. For the first time all night, I heard Carla breathing hard. Okay, she said between breaths. Okay. We know where he's been. We know what he wants. We keep him away from them. We stay together. Lockdown. Lockdown, I echoed. The storm raged against the walls like something alive. 14. Lockdown. The next hour was a blur of fear and logistics. We went into emergency mode. We woke the more alert residents and brought them into the main lounge with blankets. Left the most frail in their rooms but made sure they were on their sides, safe, call buttons within reach. Dragged furniture in front of the basement door and the disused side exit in the old gym. Checked every exterior door and turned every deadbolt we had. Pulled a fire extinguisher for me and gave Carla the mag light. We agreed on rules. 1. Nobody walked the building alone. 2. 3. All rounds were done together or not at all. 4. 5. If an alarm went off, we responded as a team. 6. And if we see him? I asked. We get between him and them, she said. That's it. That's the job tonight. The generator kept humming, but it sounded worse, tired, ragged. I watched the residents in the lounge as we worked. One woman clutched a stuffed cat, rocking slightly. Mr. Lee kept insisting we should just call the fire department, forgetting we'd already explained about the phones. One lady dozed off and on, waking to ask, "Is it morning yet?" every few minutes. Mary, in a chair by the window, watched the snow like it was a person. "He's here," she murmured at one point. "I told you." "Who?" I whispered, even though I knew the answer. "The man from before," she said. "Long time ago. He walked through walls, but nobody believed me." The way she said before made it sound like this had all happened once already, somewhere earlier in her life, looping back around. "Storms bring out weirdness," Carla had said. "Weirdness and people." 15. The ceiling. Around 5 in the morning, the storm began to shift. The howling wind softened to a lower moan. Snow still fell, but it sounded less like it wanted to rip the building apart and more like it was just falling. The generator's pitch settled into a sort of steady, exhausted rumble. In the main lounge, our little clutch of residents gradually fell asleep. We turned off the TV, it just showed static anyway, and used battery candles on the tables to keep things from feeling too harsh. For a little while, nothing happened. No alarms. No weird PA messages. No footsteps. At some point, I caught myself talking to Carla about stupid stuff, favorite movies, how she got into nursing, what I'd wanted to do before I ended up here. I think we both needed to hear our own voices say normal things. Then the memory care door alarm chimed. Ding ding. My heart lurched. Carla and I looked at each other. "You didn't open that, right?" she asked. "I've been here," I said. "You'd have seen me." She checked the panel above the keypad. "Door shows closed," she muttered. "But it registered open for a second. That takes someone pushing it." We walked down to the memory wing door. The small window in it showed the dark hallway beyond. "Ready?" she asked. "No," I said. "Do it anyway." She punched in the code. The lock clicked. She pushed the door open. The memory care hallway was lit by emergency lights, same as everywhere else. Doors closed. Carpets ugly. Everything looked normal. Too normal. We went room by room again. Everyone in bed. Everyone breathing. Nobody wandering. We reached the lounge at the end. Its door was open a few inches. Inside, I could just see the fish tank in the edge of a chair. We pushed it open. The room looked the same as before. Chairs, table, drawn curtains, fish tank bubbling. The glass doors to the courtyard were locked and bolted. Except one thing had changed. A ceiling tile in the far corner was slightly out of place. Just off enough that you could see the black gap above it. Was it like that before? I asked. No, Carla said. We both stared at that gap. The PA speaker in the corner of the room crackled. All of a sudden, at full volume, my own voice screamed. Boo! I jumped so hard I dropped the fire extinguisher. It hit the carpet with a dull thud. The word itself, boo, was stupid. Childish. But it came through the speaker with such violence that my heart tripped over itself. The PA cut off mid-echo. Silence. Then, from the ceiling gap, we heard it. A soft scrape. Like a hand sliding across drywall. Carla slowly raised her flashlight, beam shaking just a little, and pointed it up. We couldn't see anything in the blackness above the tile. Just wires and shadows. He's in the ceiling, I whispered. He's been moving above us. It made sense in a horrible way. The old building had a maze of crawlspaces and gaps above the drop ceilings. Maintenance loved them. Staff used them to hide extra decorations, boxes, junk they didn't want to deal with. If you were slim and not afraid of cramped spaces, you could get all over the building using those. And Tom had nothing but time. Carla grabbed a metal coat rack from the corner and dragged it under the loose tile, then climbed onto a chair. "Tom," she shouted. Her voice echoed off the walls, too loud in the little room. "Enough. Come down. Talk to us like a human being." Silence. The building seemed to hold its breath. Then his voice came, soft and close, from the gap. "No." "Why not?" she demanded. "You liked being seen when you were holding Harry. Come on. Let us see you now." Another scrape, closer this time. "You sprayed me," he said quietly. "That wasn't nice." A hand shot down. It happened so fast my brain barely registered it. Just a pale arm, dirty fingers, swinging down from the darkness, swiping at the flashlight. He knocked it aside. The beam spun wildly around the room, bouncing off walls and chairs, plunging us into dizzying shadows. Carla swore and jumped down, dragging me backward. "Not worth it," I said. "Just let him sit up there. He can't stay forever. He'll have to come down eventually." The generator coughed again, as if to remind us our time wasn't infinite. The emergency lights flickered. "Yeah," she said. "He will." We backed out of the lounge, eyes never leaving that loose tile. As we stepped into the hall, a single tile somewhere behind us crashed to the floor. We didn't turn around. We closed the memory wing door and locked it. "We keep everyone out of there until daylight," Carla said. For once, I agreed. I'm totally fine ignoring half my job. 16. Waiting. The last hour until morning felt unreal. We sat in the nurse's station, facing the main hallway so we could see anyone coming from either direction. The residents in the lounge dozed, blankets pulled up, mouths open. Mr. Lee snored loud enough to rattle the window. Mary's head leaned to one side, her lips moved as she whispered things to someone I hoped wasn't there. The generator sounded like it was barely holding on. The whole building had a faint tremor to it, like it was shivering. Once or twice, we heard something overhead, a shuffle, a scrape, a faint thump. We didn't investigate. We'd learned something important. We couldn't secure every inch of the building. We couldn't chase him through ceilings and crawl spaces. We could only protect the space where the residents actually were. So that's what we did. It's funny, people think horror means constant action. Screaming. Running. Jump scares. But the worst part of that night was the waiting. Sitting there with a fire extinguisher between my knees, staring at a dimly lit hallway, knowing there was a man above or below us who might decide at any moment to drop down, walk out, do something final. Waiting to see if the generator would die, waiting to see if the storm would give us back the rest of the world, waiting to see if we get through the shift with all 14 people still breathing. At some point, my thoughts drifted to stupid little things. Did I leave my car unlocked in the parking lot? Did I ever call my mom back the previous afternoon? Did I close the fridge all the way in the staff room? Your brain does that. It grabs at anything normal to balance the fear. I almost laughed at one point, thinking, if I survive this and quit, how the hell am I going to explain it in a job interview? Yes, I'm a team player, and also I pepper sprayed a guy in a nursing home basement once. Around 7 a.m., I heard something new. Not the storm, not the generator. A low, distant scraping that grew into a roar. A plow truck. 17. Sirens. The sound of the plow was the best thing I'd ever heard. You know that noise, metal against packed snow, the rhythmic scrape and clunk as it hits uneven pavement. It passed the building once, then again, closer, then settled somewhere near the front. Minutes later, lights flickered. The emergency bulbs flared, then steadied. The vending machine hummed back to life, the fish tank bubbled, the TV in the lounge clicked and flashed a blue screen. Main power was back. The generator's rumble wound down, like a tired animal finally allowed to rest. A second later, the security camera monitor behind the nurse's station blinked on. Four grainy views filled the screen: front lobby, main hall, back door, memory care lounge. In the back door feed, I saw it. A narrow path carved through the snow from the building to the road. And in that path, a figure walking away. He moved slowly, shoulders hunched, coat flapping in the wind. He didn't look back. At least, not that we could see on the camera. Is that him? I whispered. Who else would it be? Carla said. She grabbed the landline. This time, it had a dial tone. She called 911. Her voice shifted back into professional mode as she gave the details. Former employee on site, made physical contact with a resident, hid in ceiling and basement. We're secure now but need officers, also need paramedics to evaluate Mr. Harris for exposure. I only half heard her. My eyes stayed on the monitor. Watching that little grainy figure walk away felt surreal, like seeing the end of a movie. Except we were still there. And so were the scratches in the wood, the footprints, the ceiling tiles out of place. 18. After. The police arrived an hour later. You could see their frustration even from the window. The roads were still a mess, the plows barely keeping up. This place was not high on their list in a storm like that, not normally. But the word intruder gets attention. They took statements from us in the tiny administrator's office. We told them everything. How we found the footprints outside the back door. The fact that the basement door had been unlocked. The cot and badge in the electrical room. The confrontation in the courtyard with Harry. The fight in the basement. The voice on the PA. The hand from the ceiling. They took notes. They asked us to repeat certain parts. They didn't say we were crazy, but I could see it in their eyes when we talked about the PA system displaying a mind of its own. Can you access the PA from downstairs? One officer asked. No, Carla said. You have to use the console here at the nurse's station. And it lost power with everything else. The officer noted it, shrugged slightly, and moved on. Glitches happen. So do lies. They have to sort through both. They searched the building. Carefully, with hands on weapons. The residents watched them with wide, curious eyes, their morning routines thrown off. One officer went down to the basement with Carla. When he came back, he confirmed. The cot was there. The coffee mug was there. The badge was there. They took all of it as evidence. They lifted the ceiling tiles in memory care and found signs that someone had been moving around above the rooms. Displaced insulation. Scuff marks on beams. A small backpack with clothes and a sandwich wrapper. Inside the backpack was a folded photo. And Harry, younger, sitting on a park bench, hands intertwined. On the back, in neat blue ink, I'll take care of you. They put out an alert for Thomas Kinder. They found him the next day. A highway worker spotted a man walking alone on the main road, miles away, coat dusted with snow, one eye swollen and streaming. He tried to run when the trooper pulled over. Didn't get far. They arrested him. He was charged with trespassing, assault, and a handful of other things that sounded too small for what he'd done. Later, more charges got added. Harry developed pneumonia from being out in the cold. He hung on for 3 weeks. He died in the hospital. I went to his funeral. Carla did, too. We stood at the back of the small chapel, in our normal clothes instead of scrubs, watching his family cry over a man we'd half saved, half failed. After, in the parking lot, Carla lit a cigarette even though she'd been quit 4 months. Think they'll mention him? I asked. Who, she said, but I knew she knew. Tom, I said. At the trial. She flicked ash into the snow. If there is one, she said. If he doesn't get pled out as unstable and shipped somewhere, nobody checks on him either. We both knew there was a decent chance nothing that happened that night would ever feel properly resolved. Paperwork would be filed, policies would be updated, administration would hold a staff meeting and use words like unfortunate and rare incident. But the building would still be there. And he would still know exactly how it worked. 19. Leaving. I stayed at Maple Ridge for 3 more months. On paper, not much changed. They installed a newer, better camera system with battery backup, extra motion sensors on the back doors, a more finicky keypad on the basement door. For a while, the admin tried to schedule an extra 8 on nights, but budgets are budgets. Eventually, we were back to 2 of us most nights. I tried to be normal. I did rounds, I passed trays, I laughed at bad jokes. But some nights, especially when snow fell or the power flickered, I found myself staring at the ceiling tiles a little too long. When a PA crackled to life for a scheduled drill, my heart jumped. The sound of the generator, when they tested it once a month, made my hands sweat. Carla noticed. You're not sleeping, are you? She said one morning, catching me rubbing my eyes at 6 a.m. Who needs sleep? I tried to joke. She just looked at me. The kind of look people give when they can see right through your bullshit. You don't have to be a hero, she said. If this place is too much now, you can go. I nodded, pretending that idea hadn't been sitting in my chest for weeks already. I gave my notice 2 shifts later. On my last night, I did my rounds a little slower. I lingered in rooms. I refilled waters nobody would drink. I tucked in blankets people would kick off minutes later. When I got to Mary's room, she was awake, staring at the ceiling. Leaving, she said as soon as she saw me. I froze. How did you know? She tapped her temple and smiled faintly. People leave, she said. This place eats people. I told you. You were right, I admitted quietly. She reached for my hand. I let her hold it. You locked the door, she said, eyes drifting toward the window where the storm had battered the glass that night. You did better this time. This time? I repeated. She nodded, already drifting in her own memory. He used to come when I was young, she murmured. Tall man. Storm man. Nobody believed me then either. Maybe she was just talking in loops. Maybe not. Either way, I squeezed her hand. Sleep, Mary, I whispered. I left at 7 a.m., walked out the front doors, and didn't look back until I reached my car. The building looked small from the parking lot. Ordinary. If you drove by, you'd never guess who had moved through its walls. 20. What sticks? Years have passed since that night. I don't work nights anymore. Or in healthcare. If people ask why, I give them the easy answers. I don't tell them. Sometimes, when a winter storm hits and the power flickers, I feel a sweat break out along my spine and have to walk my tiny apartment, checking every closet twice. The sound of a generator out at a construction site or in a movie makes my stomach twist. I still see those footprints in my mind, pressed into fresh snow, leading up to a door and not away. A couple of times, I drove past Maple Ridge. Once in summer, when everything was green and the sun made the fake stone on the building look almost warm. They'd repainted the sign, added a few flowers, hung cheerful banners about family care. From the outside, it looked like any other place now. I sat at the light and stared at it longer than I probably should have. For a moment, I almost convinced myself that night had gotten bigger in my memory than it deserved. That fear had pumped it up, made ordinary things monstrous. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. There was nothing at first. Just the faint hiss of a line connecting. Then, in my own voice, slightly distorted like it had been recorded and played back, I heard. Code Blue, Room 3. The call cut off. I stared at the phone. The number showed up as all zeros. Probably a glitch. A spam call. Some weird recording error or spoofed caller ID. That's what I tell myself. Most days, it works. I go on with my life. I make coffee, I answer emails, I scroll. But when winter rolls around, and the sky turns that heavy gray, and I see snow start to fall in big, soft flakes, I always think of that night. Of an old building half-powered by a tired generator. Of 14 people asleep in their beds. Of a man who loved his idea of care more than the people he claimed he was rescuing. And of how thin the line really was between safety and disaster. It wasn't magic that kept those residents alive that night. It wasn't prayers or lucky charms. It was just two exhausted women, a can of pepper spray, a heavy flashlight, and a decision. We are not letting him have them. That's the part of the story I hold on to when it feels too big. We were scared, we were underprepared, we weren't special. But we were there. And sometimes, on nights when the wind howls just right and the lights flicker, that's the only kind of hero anyone gets.